Why don't we know Jesus better? If Jesus has given his life for me the way the gospel says he has, I just want to know everything there is to know about him. And there were two moments that sort of brought this into focus for me. The first was I was teaching a class on the life of Jesus, and an elderly woman came up to me and said, well, did Jesus have any brothers? I said, well, I think he had two. I mean, I know about, James and Jude, but, I'm not really sure. Well, the fact is, the Bible tells us he has 4 brothers. Jesus grows up in a house of 9 people. He has at least 2 sisters and 4 brothers, and we know their names: James, Jude, Simon, and Joseph. So that first question from that lady pointed out the fact to me that though I know Jesus, I don't know so much about him. And then the second was kind of even more impacting. I was in Israel, and I was talking to a friend who's a rabbinic student. One of the points is that Jesus goes to Jerusalem 3 times a year for the feast. He goes all the way from Galilee, a 5-6 day walk, to observe the 3 great feasts, the Shalosh Religim. But this rabbi says, but what does that mean? I said, what are you talking about? He says, what does it mean that he does that? I said, I don't know. Why don't you tell me? He said, it means, and get this, Jesus spends at least 3 months out of every year walking back and forth to Jerusalem. And that completely blew my mind. So I knew this fact about Jesus, but I didn't really know what it meant. And so those 2 moments just put me on this path. I want to know everything there is to know about Jesus, but not only the facts, I want to know what they mean. So that's what I want to spend some time together looking like. So let's talk about, for example, what Jesus looked like. We have a pretty good idea. He was about 5'6". How do I know that? Average height of a Jewish male, first century. This is a series of excavations that were done in Israel. Average height, 5'6". Average hair length, 3 inches. Black hair, about 3 inches long. He would have been called Yeshu. I think this is interesting. We call him Jesus, which is kind of a Greek version of his Hebrew name. Yehoshua would be his full name. And then that's shortened to Yeshua. And then his nickname, like my name is Mike, in day-to-day parlance, he would have been called Yeshu, which, I don't know, I just think that's really cool. And he looks just like everyone else. He's virtually unrecognizable. How do I know that? Because Judas has to point him out in the crowd. And in John 21, the second miraculous catch of fish, his own disciples don't recognize him, and he's only 100 yards away standing on the shore. So there's something about Jesus that he fits in, he blends into the crowd. He doesn't have the long auburn hair and the halo and the blue eyes that sometimes we think he has. No skull cap, that doesn't happen until the 5th century. No earlocks, again, that doesn't happen until much later. He speaks 3 languages. How do I know that? Because everyone in his world speaks 3 languages. When he's day-to-day, when he's talking in and around Galilee, he speaks Galilean Aramaic, which has a very distinctive sound to it. We'll talk about that in a minute. There are certain syllables that Jesus can't pronounce, which I think is so cool. He speaks Galilean Aramaic. He speaks Hebrew when he's in the synagogue. And Jesus speaks Greek. He speaks some Greek because when he's speaking to Pilate, when he's talking to the Syrophoenician woman, well, we know he's speaking Greek. So I think that's pretty cool. As I said before, he grows up in a household of 9 people: Joseph, Mary, 4 brothers, and at least 2 sisters. Unfortunately, we don't know his sisters' names. From the age of 12, he has this awareness that he has a special relationship with God. We get that when he's in the synagogue. We know his favorite Bible verse because it's kind of everybody's favorite Bible verse, and we'll look at that in a minute. It's called the Shema. And in Jesus' day, things are very fragmented. If you read the Gospels, this is really clear. There's Galilee and Judea. Galilee is this beautiful green, a lot like Tennessee, where I'm from. Judea is a desert, is a barren desert where Jerusalem is. So that world's fragmented. the Judaism of Jesus' day really, it's not what Judaism is today. In fact, one rabbi has said there really wasn't Judaism in Jesus' day. There were Judaisms. And if you read the Bible, you know this is true. We have Sadducees, we have Pharisees, we have Essenes, we have Zealots, we have all these different groups. We have Israelite religion in the temple, where we're sacrificing things with priests. But then we have this new innovation called the synagogue. The word synagogue isn't even in the Hebrew Bible. Rabbi, that word's not even in the Hebrew Bible. But that's a part of Jesus' religious world. So Israelite religion, and now we got this new thing called Rabbinic Judaism. And the Pharisees, the rabbis that are part of Rabbinic Judaism, have come up with what is called the oral law. It's a way of keeping a fence around the commandments so that you don't break them. Not necessarily a bad thing, but not always really a good thing. And one of the interesting things to me, again, about the details of Jesus' life is that while he keeps the biblical law perfectly, because he is perfect, he breaks the oral law every chance he gets. He shows this open disdain for the oral law, which I think is awesome. One of the best examples is when he's healing the blind man. He spits and makes mud. Well, ask yourself, does Jesus have to use spit to heal someone? No, Jesus doesn't even have to be there to heal someone. Go home, your daughter's well. He can heal in absentia. So I found out that the oral law said that you were not allowed to spit on the Sabbath because the spit might run downhill, and if it runs downhill, that makes mud, and making mud is work. So you can't spit on the Sabbath. That's this world that Jesus is living in. And so he breaks the oral law every chance he gets, which I don't know, I think that's one of the coolest things about him. But in many ways, Jesus is more conservative than the Pharisees. He goes to synagogue, he goes to the pilgrimage feast, he pays the half shekel tax, he sends the leper back to the temple for the priest to examine him. And that points to one of the difficulties of knowing Jesus. You can't say he's just one thing. He's very conservative, but in other ways, he's introducing all kinds of new ideas. In one sense, he's very much a Galilean, and we'll talk about Galilean Jewishness in a minute. But he also is able to function in and around Pharisees and priests and the religious elite. I mean, obviously, a lot of them don't like him, but at least 9 times he goes into hiding. Isn't that interesting? In 32 times his emotional state is described in the Gospels, and it's almost always filled with compassion. We don't see him laughing. I wish we could see him laughing. At one point, Luke tells us that he's filled with joy through the Holy Spirit, and I think that may be my favorite image of Jesus. Luke says he's filled with joy through the Holy Spirit, and he says to the Lord, I praise you, Father. You've hidden these things from the wise, and you've revealed them to little children. So I want to end with that image of Jesus. Jesus filled with joy at the fact that the Lord is turning the world upside down. That's what fills him with joy, and it's one of the central reasons I want to know everything there is to know about him.